is it true, or is it a conspiracy theory, that the ships' names were switched?
That is definitely a conspiracy theory. So the origins behind that story is so Olympic entered service first, right? And she was under the command of Captain Smith, same commander of Titanic, and she was operating the transatlantic service well before Titanic entered service. And during one of those voyages when she was departing Southampton, she was making her way down Southampton water, and passing her was a Royal Naval vessel, the HMS Hawke. And a combination of factors related to speed and also the suction of a large ship like Olympic ultimately led to the Hawke being pulled into the side of Olympic and crashing into her. And put up on screen now, it left a big hole in the side of Olympic, but below the waterline it actually damaged her propeller shaft. She had 3 propellers. Each one of them has its own shaft that connects it to the engines, and the outboard propeller shaft on the starboard side was damaged beyond, they couldn't use it anymore. So Olympic was actually sent to Belfast for repairs. And when she was in Belfast, there's this amazing moment where the incomplete Titanic is sitting there and Olympic comes alongside her and the two ships are there together. Now, they're in vastly different phases of completion. Olympic is damaged, but she's complete. She's done voyages, she's furnished, she's got provisions on board, everything is ready on Olympic. Titanic is still being fitted out. And to get Olympic back into service as quickly as possible, they actually took parts from Titanic, including the elements of the propeller shaft from the ship, and put them across on Olympic. Because this photograph exists that you're seeing on screen now, there is a marvelous conspiracy theory that says, look, Olympic was so badly damaged that there was no way to profitably run her anymore, so they switched the two ships. And then the Titanic became the Olympic and she went back into service. And then Olympic as Titanic was, purposefully sunk to claim on the insurance
for an
money.
Insurance claim, yeah.
I have a couple of problems with that conspiracy theory. Firstly, no one can keep a secret, right? For that to have worked, thousands of people would have had to have kept a secret. Because not only would you have to switch the ships, but you'd have to fit out the Titanic as Olympic in virtually no time at all. It would have been a remarkable achievement. You would have had to bring thousands, tens of thousands of people on to even run it at that speed. I mean, Titanic wasn't ready to enter service. But also, why would you go to the trouble of switching the ships just to sink one when you could repair Olympic and then put her into service and sink her if that's what you were going to do? It makes absolutely no sense. It's complete nonsense, but it makes for absolutely wonderful documentaries on the Discovery Channel. People seem to love that sort of stuff. There's lots of conspiracies there, Anthony. I'm sure we'll touch on some more of them today.
Well, they want, if they want these ships to have a 30-year life cycle minimum, and as a revenue-generating ship, then you're going to make more money from a ship in service than one that you purposely sink and get an insurance claim from. Yes. Surely, So
that's it.
It doesn't make sense. And if Titanic had have made it across, how do you think the story might have changed? Do you think that there would have been the media coverage and the press interest in Titanic? Because Titanic is obviously a much better name for a ship that they're selling as being unsinkable compared to Olympic, for example. So do you think the story would have had so much interest if she hadn't have sunk? No,
I almost can guarantee it wouldn't have. Not as much interest as what we have now, of course.
Sure, but at the time, the week of when she arrives into New York like 12 hours early as Bruce Ismay wanted for the line. I mean, if that had actually happened, do you think it would have been a huge fanfare, or was that something that Olympic had already kind of covered?
Yeah, I mean, there would always have been fanfare. Like even when you see the departure images of Titanic leaving Southampton, for example, there's people there to see it. That's just the way it was, because people were, relocating and traveling long distance. You might not see them for years again. So there was always like a lot of interest around shipping at the time. I think if Titanic had arrived in New York, it would have been a spectacle event, as those maiden arrivals often were. Look, I mean, the name itself, I think we attach a lot of meaning to the name Titanic now. the sensibilities, the mindset back in 1912 was a little bit different to what it is in modern times. Those ships, the trio, were to be named after ancient Greek mythology, and it was the Olympians, the Titans, and arguably the third one would have been called Gigantic, the giants, because those three supernatural species, they used to sort of interact with each other in Greek mythology. Ultimately, the third one was actually launched as Britannic, and like there's a lot of debate amongst maritime historians as to whether Gigantic was actually going to be the name. There's some source material that suggests it was. There's some source material that suggests perhaps it wasn't. So it's one of those like stories that's lost to history. But the Titanic itself, I think she would have probably become, she would have gone then back and forth with her fleet mates, would probably have survived through to World War One. Goodness knows what would have happened then, because they would have, ultimately she would have been requisitioned for use most likely as a troop carrier or as a hospital ship. As we saw, Britannic, the third one, she was sunk as a hospital ship during World War One. Olympic served very, very bravely during World War One, became a very well-loved ship, got the nickname of Old Reliable. So she had a really different story, a very different trajectory to her sister ships. So Titanic, I think, would be a ship that maritime people knew, but I don't think it would be a ship that most of the public would know. And, what's interesting is that even, you think about rival companies. So there's Hamburg America, and they had the Imperator, for example, which is a German translation for emperor. And it was a massive ship. It was named like a very, very strong name, a bit like Titanic. It had an interior that was arguably far superior in some areas to Titanic's. It was very top heavy at first, actually. They gave it a nickname of Limperator because it used to have a list. But,
Yep.
No one knows that ship now, save for maritime historians. And I speak about it in my lectures on board, and, no one's ever heard of it. Most people don't even think about Aquitania, which was a remarkable ship that, again, arguably in some spaces had more appealing interiors than even Titanic or Olympic did. And Britannic itself, the third one, would have outshone both of its sister ships because its interiors were going to be a step up. Like in the Grand Staircase, for example, the forward Grand Staircase, there wasn't just the beautiful stairway and the wrought iron dome, but they were going to have a full-size pipe organ in there as well, so you could be piped down to to dinner. Yeah. Imagine that. So I don't think, I'm sure it would have been one of the many ships that we talk about in the history, but I don't think it would have had the same allure as it did for having that very tragic maiden voyage.